I am Rebekah Zabarsky, the marketing director at Parrot Analytics, and you're watching the Global TV Demand Awards Virtual Festival. And I'm thrilled to be here, joined by Simon Barry, the creator and showrunner of Warrior Nun, as well as Alba Baptista, the Warrior Nun. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, and Alba too.
And me, yes. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, Alba is joining us on location, which is very exciting. But we're thrilled to be able to talk like this right now. So I want to talk a little bit about why we are all talking together today. Warrior Nun is a finalist for the most in-demand series debut of 2020. And I consider it unofficially the winner of the most badass name of a show of 2020 and of a character. So that's not official, but it's a very, very cool concept.
You're God's champion. You fight in his name.
About that, I'm not exactly what you would call religious. Also, I just got these back, so I'm not sure how the whole fighting thing is gonna work. You want some?
The show premiered on July 2nd this year on Netflix. And what's unique about this and why we're here today is that we're talking about the popularity of the show with global audiences. So it's not just about one particular market, like the US. The finalist status is not created, it's not a nomination based on voting panels or judges. It's based on audience demand for the show. And when I say that, I'm talking about the ways that people are interacting with Warrior Nun. So I just want to let that kind of settle in. We're talking about global, and we're talking about billions of data points that we're measuring to see that it's actually, one of the top 5 shows of the year. So it's with so many shows being launched and premiered now, it's a pretty big and exciting status. So congratulations for that. And I want to just get started and hear you, let's start discussing a little bit more about the show. So we're talking about its global popularity. I want to start with Alba. What do you think makes Warrior Nun so popular with global audiences?
Well, I think this is a very unique show because it travels from so many genres. It's officially a show for the niche of the superhero fans, but then it's so much more, and I think the characters are so humane and so relatable, each and every one, that really is so easy to just connect with the show itself. And it is a feel-good show where you can start watching it and zoom out of your reality, but it's also so emotional and intense, and people search for connection and for emotion, so we have a little bit of everything.
Absolutely. Simon, what do you think?
Yeah, I would echo what Alba said. I think the show is, even though it is genre and it is very specific in its own universe, it's very universal in terms of how it deals with big themes like good and evil, and mythology like heaven and hell, and those things are very accessible to a wide-ranging audience, not just North American. I think that's great. I think also the diversity of our show is also appealing to a global audience. We have a very representative show, and I think that it's nice to turn on the show and see yourself, see someone who looks like you, and characters that are they're in a very uncertain world, and where you're constantly bombarded with politics and things. These characters are fighting for these bigger, larger ideals, and that have nothing to do with sort of small-minded people and small-minded politics. So I think that's, in a strange way, kind of back to basics. mythology storytelling, and the people are starting for a bit of that. So I think that helps. And I think I not to toot our own horn, but I think Alba, myself, and the team, we worked really hard to make a very good looking show, a show that actually was trying to be a little bit more elevated than the expectations from the title and from perhaps, what the trailer was presenting. We liked the idea that we could say more and do more in a show that maybe was punching above its weight in terms of the execution. And, it's one of the reasons we shot in Spain, and that we really worked hard to find the best cast and the best creative people we could for the design of the show and the look of the show. So, I felt like everyone was behind that when we were making it. We were all raising the bar wherever we could, whether it was the cast, the writers, or the filmmakers.
And it comes through. Absolutely. It's stunning. It's a very beautiful show. And, even just the shots of Spain and that setting, it's unexpected, I guess, from
That's good.
Yeah, I think so.
I like unexpected. Yeah.
Right.
I think unexpected is you can use that as a storyteller. Audiences make an assumption when they tune in, and if you give them something unexpected, that sometimes hooks them and keeps them engaged, and also talk about the show with their friends and online.
Absolutely, which they did. Simon was talking about the setting and kind of creating something that I felt as a viewer was very unexpected. And so that brings me to your character, Ava, the Warrior Nun, which I really enjoy saying. I hope you enjoy saying that too, by the way.
Yes, it's an honor to be referred as the Warrior Nun.
The Warrior Nun. I like talking about
the goddamn Warrior Nun.
All right, so now I can also tell people I spoke with the goddamn Warrior Nun.
That's right.
I'm actually very excited to do that. So let's talk about your character a little bit more, because I was saying that she was very unexpected to me as a viewer. And I have assumptions, I guess, about nuns in general. I don't know any, but we've all seen them in the movies and TV. And Ava is not a typical nun. None of them are in the show. But I want to talk a little bit more about her and how you brought her to life, and what were maybe some of, I guess we'll kind of back up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about her? And, in your own words, how do you see Ava, the Warrior Nun?
Ava is just the purest soul that you'll ever meet, really, and not the typical superhero that you expect to see in a show, not at all, because she went through a rough past, and we start the show waking up with her, and it's this journey of self-discovery, and that's also one of the reasons that I think must have been so refreshing for most audience to watch, because you kind of get back to the roots with this character, and remembering what it's like to dance for the first time, or to taste amazing food, or to just experience new emotions. And this is why I say that she's so pure and so loving, but also so sure of herself, even though she doesn't even know it, of her essence. Yes, and she's loyal, which is something that we discover with her, and she discovers for herself as well throughout the season. And yeah, she's just a box of full of surprises.
Absolutely, she is.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges of bringing her to life, or kind of becoming that character? Do you feel like you are similar? Like, was this easy for you to kind of like get into that character and play her, or was this a little bit different than your own personality?
Yes, she's quite different from me, I think. Simon can also be the judge of that, but it was such a huge and amazing challenge to play someone who has, first of all, a comedic timing that I've never played in any of my roles before. I had never done, so I didn't know if I would deliver or be good at it. And second of all, have fun with it. And I discovered that it was so fluent, and it just rose a lot of confidence in me, because I was discovering things about myself that I didn't know as well with her, because of her.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, we are very different, I think, vocabulary wise as well. But I think that's what I like most, to really grow apart from myself, and to create her.
Sure.
My truth. Yeah.
So I kind of want to talk a little bit about the story itself, and how this was created from a comic book story. And so Simon, I want to understand a little bit from your perspective, how do you create something that kind of it has a life of its own already, but how do you adapt it? And maybe you could talk to us a little bit about your process, or some of the challenges, some things that you learned along the way, how, just your perspective on how you did that. You took this from comic book story to screen.
Sure. I mean, this one was very specific in the adaptation, because the comic book, which is actually it's actually an American manga style comic book. So it's actually quite dense. And the mythology of the comic book was really the most appealing component of the adaptation, because the secret sect of evil fighting nuns really set a very kind of specific table for the show's ability to succeed and to tell stories from. The style and tone of the comic book was very different, and probably not as open-minded as TV audiences would want. It was a little bit more rock and roll, a little bit punk rock. So the journey for us was very straightforward. It was staged, because the first time I encountered the material was to adapt it as a feature film, as a movie. Mm-hmm. And the limitation of that was that the mythology of the comic books that Ben Dunn had created was so big, you couldn't pack it all into one movie. It needed, more room. So a TV adaptation felt like the natural extension of that. So at that point, we really just took the intent and the attitude of the comic book, and the writers and I, we kind of hunkered down and really took it apart and put it back together as what you see is the TV show. And that was really an evolution of the comic book to the movie that never got made, to the TV show idea, which was in the comic book, there's no Ava. The comic books are all from the point of view of the working nuns, the actual warrior nuns and the fighting nuns. But for our purposes, we really wanted the audience to go on a journey with someone who was discovering what the OCS was all about and what they did and who was part of it. So having Ava as the audience's avatar, and taking that journey with them was the biggest change, I would say. I mean, that really helped, I think, attach to Ava as a character because of what she went through, but also we could take the journey with her, discovering what warrior nuns are all about and their history. And that for me was much more important from a TV point of view. It was like, how do we serve the audience? How do we let the audience in on this secret sect and not overwhelm them with so much information and so much mythology? So that was really, I guess, once we had that established, that really made everything very straightforward. And the writers and I really just started to build out from Ava's point of view. Really, Ava was our eyes and our ears and our heart. And we just needed to figure out how that journey could go take left turns and right turns in a way that was entertaining.
It is.
And bring the world to her, bring
right.
The Warrior Nun universe into Ava's universe, as opposed to, being thrown into the deep end too quick.
Right. Yeah, I, one aspect of her character, and when we talk about this universe, is that, and without giving it away, I guess, she's kind of an unlikely recipient of her new status. And so I think there's something about that, she's, like I said, unexpected in terms of her character. And so when we're talking about these audiences all over the world that are, loving the show and interacting with it, there is something, like you said earlier, about the connection that it inspires with people. And that's obviously what we're seeing on our end with the data. And so I want to talk a little bit more about the audiences, and if you look to them for feedback or just knowledge, like how do you interact with audiences? You know, first as the Warrior Nun, Alba, I mean, I'd like to hear from you, and also just as a creator, what is that interaction like? Is it a two-way street? You know, I like to know a little bit more about that.
Well, for me personally, I've been, it's been nice to have had the feedback from obviously social media. I mean, that's the most direct way of finding out how people are responding to it. And it's really emotional, and it's really beautiful to have just, you know, a lot of unexpected compliments and just insights on how they read the character, and specific moments of the character's arc, how they would relate to themselves. And it's just, yeah, my heart just warms so much. And so I try to interact with some people, and yes, it's an honor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, we have a ton of fan engagement with, probably not as much as Alba does for sure, but it's there is a definitely, you know, a fan base that is very vocal and engaged in the show, and it's great. And we don't necessarily want to be in a position where we're waiting for them to cue us on what they like or what they don't like. We're definitely aware of it, and we've definitely taken notes about things that, you know, things like we could have done better, I think, creatively, and things that have worked really well in the show that we might not have seen coming when we were writing it and making it. So I think those things are, if you look at them kind of as a holistic thing, you can really glean a lot of, you know, good information. But it's hard to be, I tend to steer away from anything specific, you know, that's too, you know, because it's, again, I know being a fan, that as a fan, we tend to be a vocal minority, not the majority. And when you look at, you know, the number of people who have seen the show, it's like the super fans are the ones who are making the most noise, which is great. And, you know, and I think that there is always, it's always great to listen. There's nothing, you never lose from listening.
Sure.
And, you know, I think it inspires us more than anything to keep the standard high and to do better wherever we can in season 2. So definitely for us, as the writers and I've discussed, the fan interaction has really inspired us to make sure that the show continues to do the things it did well, which is to surprise, engage, and challenge, and also be, you know, and to dial up all the stuff that was working well in season 1, make sure it's there in season 2. So as a creator, it's really great just to have the feedback, for sure. I mean, it's it can, if negative comments don't help, we tend to avoid those. But for the most, I would say the bulk of anything I've read online has been 95% positive. So that's good.
Can you talk to us about dialing up? What does that mean? Maybe not in the specifics, can't share any secrets, but just about season 2.
There are moments in season 1 the audience really, really loved, and I think what we're happy with that, and we obviously want to give them more of the things that they love. And so it could be, an example would be, there's a scene in season 1 where Beatrice, played by Christina Tanteri Young, she fights a group of security guards with a kendo stick in a hallway, and that moment turned out to be really popped. You know, people were talking about it, they were tweeting and Instagramming photos and videos of it. So we just like, wow, that we want to see more nuns doing more cool kick-ass things, I think, is
more nuns being awesome warrior nuns.
Yeah, and I think also there was also a demand that Alba's character, that Ava, be more in the middle of the action too, because, you know, she's kind of in season 1, she's earning her stripes and not really in a moment where until close to the end, where she gets to really do her thing. So we really want to make sure that Ava is up there in the pantheon of ass kicking to the level that everyone else is, you know. So I think those are two examples, I think, of where we took some feedback and we extrapolated things that we could make work in season 2 in a way that I think the audience will love. And so that's the plan. We've written the script, so we're ready to go.
That's exciting. Could you tell us, both of you, what's like your favorite memory of making the show or of the show of season 1? Is there a scene or a moment, maybe some behind the scenes moments?
I mean, yes, many. For me, it was just a constant discovery of, because I felt like, having been almost always on set, I crossed with, the characters came and went, and for me it was really beautiful every time I had a moment or a scene with some actor where I felt like, okay, now we've connected, and now, you know, next time it'll be even better and even easier, and all of that. And yes, I think for me the beginning was the most cathartic revelation for me, just discovering the character with Simon by my side. That was the rock always through those 5 months. It's just yes, it was very special. So it's hard to pin it on something very specific because, I don't know, everything was really beautiful.
Yeah, she's right. It's a tough question to answer with anything specific, because the process was really, it was great. Being on something new and in Spain and sort of all in it as a team, you know, everyone was sort of pulling together. It was really a great feeling and made the show better. And I think just for me, it was just being surrounded by so many talented people. I was constantly in awe of the degree of commitment and creativity and artistry that was on display every day. And all I had to do was kind of get out of the way for the most part. It was like I basically picked all the right ingredients, and then somebody else was making the dinner and I could just enjoy it. So it was really for me personally, it was very satisfying to know that I had people all around me who were incredibly gifted and good at what they did. And I appreciated that, and I enjoyed watching them work. And so it meant that I could enjoy the process that much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I want to talk a little bit about the global audiences again, and just kind of share some data points, because we're a data company. You know, I picked out, you know, we have a concept called travelability. It is the way that a show travels in popularity around the world, right? And so we know that Warrior Nun is globally very popular, but like I looked at some of the other markets where audiences really were engaging with the show. And so I wanted to share those with you and actually just get your reaction. See if you know, just point blank. The shows in the 4 months since its premiere, the audiences in Kenya, Russia, South Africa, and the Philippines showed the highest demand for this series outside of the US.
Wow.
So yeah, Kenya, Russia, South Africa, and the Philippines.
Yeah, when would you ever group those 4 countries together?
Right?
That's wild. Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah. So that's how I feel. Wow. It's really interesting to see this and to understand that there are audiences all over, you know, representing so many different cultures, but they've sort of come together to appreciate and enjoy your work. So you know, it's not often, I don't think, that you know, have access to that information. So we want to make sure you see it and you're aware. And that kind of brings me to a point that you made earlier, Simon, about the diversity and representation in the show. It's really wonderful, and it feels organic, right? It just feels like these are people, you can certainly feel it in terms of the cast working together and the story. You know, the story is the strongest part, but maybe those connections, those moments of connection that you had, Alba, just come through in the show because you feel, everyone feels like they're meant to be there. But it made me think about diversity in TV. And at Pear Analytics, we've done many studies around just the current landscape. We look at the data behind diversity in TV shows. And so I was wondering if you had any thoughts about that, any thoughts about the diversity in the show, in Warrior Nun, and whether that was something that was intentional, or kind of how you came to bring together this group of people that all look very different and have very different backgrounds.
Well, we knew that because we were dealing with a mythology that was connected to the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church is a global structure, that opened up all of these different cultural connections to the nuns being sourced from, all over the world. So it was really easy for us to kind of lean into diversity as a part of the organic nature of what the OCS is all about. I mean, we definitely associate that with, I think, a global concept, and that, so we didn't really have to, I guess we didn't have to like push very hard to argue for that cause, that was very, and then Netflix was always very open and encouraging of it anyway. And so, but for me personally, as a writer, and on the other shows I've made, I've always tried to write characters that are interesting from a point of view of who they are, and then you just cast whoever the best actor is, and you want the best representation of the audience that's watching the show. And especially in genre and science fiction, which is where I've spent most of my career, I've always known that the audience for those shows is much more universal and much more open-minded, usually more intelligent. And so it's always better to have a show that represents your core audience going into it, because that's ultimately I work for them. I don't work for Netflix. I don't work for the studio. I work for the audience, and so that makes things very straightforward for me. I don't have to think about it, and I'm glad it's resonating. I think it's, I'm not surprised. Never surprised. I mean, it seems like it seems natural.
Yeah. Alba, what do you think? Do you have any thoughts about that?
No, I fully agree with Simon, and I think this is the fact that all the leads are women, and this is a women's show, and how and the message behind it is such a feminist message, and yes, and hopefully this won't be even a subject in a couple of years where we have to say that this is a good show that represents women, that is reinforcing the message, and but it is, and it's a step forward, and I'm so happy to be a part of it and to contribute for what the industry needs. And I'm fortunate enough to live in an era where it's already evolved so much, and it is a luxury for us, and it was while shooting, and the writing is so sensitive in that aspect. They really wanted to just glorify the power of women together, and that's quite beautiful.
Well, I'm really happy I'm just grateful that the show has a global audience, number one, and that there's a passionate response to what we did. I mean, we worked really hard making the show, and it's great that it makes a connection with people. So, I mean, ultimately that's why we do this. We're entertainers, and we're here to make people, forget about their troubles and hopefully inspire people to think about things they normally don't think about. So yeah, I mean, it's great to know that we are succeeding in on a level that is, unimpeachable, I guess you could say, in terms of numbers are real, and there's real people behind each of those numbers as a person, and someone who is, hopefully enjoying the show. So that's great. It's a good feeling. Alba?
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, I mean, I think the only thing I could add is thank you for watching, and also, at least for me, this just drives me so much more to do even better for season 2, and to really give the unexpected and to satisfy everyone and for all the expectations to be met and even, you know, above it. I love the show and I can't wait to give more life to Ava.
That's awesome. Well, I know that we know global audiences will be excited to tune in, and we'll definitely be tracking the demand for season 2 as well. So we'll have to check in over the next few months. I mean, when a show with a season 1, now there's a fandom that's interacting and eager for updates and anything they can get their hands on. So we'll be able to see what we call the pre-release demand for the show. And so as, you know, I believe it's in, you know, you're working on it now. So as it gets closer and closer to a season 2 date, which do you have right now?
No.
Okay.
No date yet.
Okay. Yeah. Then, you know, we'll see the demand for it rising. And I'm excited to share what happens for season 2 and to watch.
Same here. Thank you,
all right.
Rebekah.
Thank
Really
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.